Hey guys, welcome back to Project Bodybuilding. In today's video, I have another reaction for you, raw and uncut. We are going to be reacting to Tyler Manion's recap of the Arnold Classic, the Open Men's Division. So I've been doing these reactions for a couple of his videos now. I've been doing them for the Arnold Ohio, and I'm planning on doing a lot more of them because I think this is so insightful. You know, we hardly ever get any type of feedback from the judges' table. You know, you'll have guys that say they talk to the judges afterwards, you know, like the actual competitors, and they'll get feedback, but we hardly ever get a full analysis like this. So this is great to see. I love the transparency he's bringing to the IFBB. So I'm going to be reacting to this video today. He just basically goes through most of the placings. If there's any controversy, he likes to, you know, address it, things like that. And I just do these raw and uncut. You know, I cut the intro up a little bit because I screw up quite a bit on the intro. But other than that, these are my first initial reactions. This is my first time ever viewing the video. I think that's the best way to do it. I'd rather not take notes. I know some people like to do that. I'd rather just do it raw and unedited. One, it saves time. And then two, you guys get my actual initial thoughts. So that's what we're going to do. This is a raw and uncut reaction to the Arnold Classic Open Men's Recap done by Tyler Manion. If you guys like these videos, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. And by the way, I am thinking about doing these live at some point. Maybe I'll do a couple of them live. I'll see how it does. If you guys have any interest in that, leave a comment down below and let me know if you want to see it live, if you don't really care. I'm going to do them regardless, but if you do want to see them live and have that live chat element to it, definitely let me know. Anyway, let's just jump into the video. Here is Tyler Manion's video, the 2024 IFBB Pro League Arnold Classic UK Open Men's Bodybuilding Recap. I didn't make that up. That's the actual title, but let's get into the video.
Hi everyone, Tyler Manion here, NPC and IFBB Pro League Vice President. And today we're going to go over the recap for the Men's Open Bodybuilding at the Arnold UK. And this is brought to you by Uprising, powered by Mid45. So let's get into the show. And first I want to say what an amazing show this was. You know, when you have two top guys that are bringing it, it was so exciting in this venue that if you guys weren't there and you guys aren't coming to these live shows, you're missing out. You know, I want to give a big shout out to the UK crowd. They brought a soccer-like atmosphere to this show. They were making noise for everybody, but it was literally deafening when Samson came out on Saturday night to do his posing routine.
Yep, that's his home turf.
And then once we started doing the comparisons, the energy in there was just electric. So hopefully some of you UK fans can make it to the Olympia this year because you'll force the US crowd to start giving the US bodybuilders the same kind of love. But it was one of my favorite shows I ever judged because of the crowd and also because of how great Hadi and Samson looked. And they both made big improvements from the first night to the second night as well. We'll get to breaking down the athletes, and first we'll go through Hadi and Samson, and we'll go pose by pose for them. The footage we'll use will be the Saturday night footage because I think they both improved, you know, a lot actually from Friday to Saturday.
Definitely from what I saw on the live stream.
Same amount, but it made for a great show. I'd say Saturday Night Samson is definitely by far the best version of Samson that we've seen yet.
Definitely one of.
And Hadi from Friday to Saturday really filled out and brought a package that was very similar to the Arnold in Columbus. So here we go, pose by pose.
All right.
First pose up is the front double bicep. Now, this front double bicep on Friday, I definitely gave to Hadi. The conditioning and cuts and separation definitely made it lean towards him. He's also done an amazing job of making this pose become a strength for him. When he pulls up his vacuum, his waist ends up becoming so much smaller, you know, on stage than it really is. And his taper and the flow to his physique has gotten so much better in this pose. I mean, I think it even improved a lot just from the Olympia last year to the contest these past 2 weeks.
That's the biggest improvement I noticed from the front.
Samson's also brought up his front double bicep a lot more, I think.
Okay, so he's talking about Hadi's improvements there, and he talked about how the waist has gotten so much better, and that's the really only thing he talked about in terms of Hadi's improvement from this pose. But that's all you need. That's all Hadi needed. He brought up the legs as well, but that was more so in Ohio. We'll get to Hadi's legs in a second here. But his waist brought everything together. Hadi's main criticism was he's blocky. He's blocky, he's blocky, he's blocky. That's the main one. There were some other ones too, but he's blocky. So bringing that waist together gives him the taper, gives him the X-frame. It was the missing piece to this element. So it was the missing piece of this equation, I guess I should say. But right here, I do think initially my eyes are more drawn to Samson. But just in terms of Hottie, I think this is one of the strongest versions he's ever brought, especially in this pose. I think the Arnold Ohio was much better. I think the legs were more filled out in Ohio. So I don't know if he mentioned that Samson was better on Saturday, and both of these guys were better on Saturday. So I imagine this is the Saturday night finals footage. I think so. I don't know if I was able to figure out the trunks. Maybe I could match it up. So I don't really know. I assume this is the Saturday finals footage though. So Hottie wasn't as full as the Arnold Ohio. And if you guys know anything about Hottie's travels, he got here in the UK with 24 hours to spare, so that's to be expected. He's a little less full, but I think since he doesn't have the legs on the bottom kind of rounding out that X-frame, and Samson got a lot better, I initially am drawn to Samson. Let's see what he has to say about Samson and the two together.
I think even from the Olympia last year, the overall flow and balance is great. On Friday, I definitely gave this pose to Hottie.
I think that's fair.
On Saturday night, I thought this pose was really a toss-up.
Yeah.
I could see why people would like each guy in this pose. I think overall, Samson has a little bit better flow than Hottie in this pose, but still the conditioning and the separation of the muscles and how everything was popping, I just barely leaned towards Hottie on Saturday night.
I would actually disagree. I think this is a shape pose, and like he said, it can go either way. I think Samson does enough to on Saturday night. In this particular still frame of this particular footage, I do prefer Samson's flow. He's gonna always be so good in these first two shots. I think if this was Hottie from the Arnold Ohio, I think it would have narrowly gone to him. Maybe not so narrowly, but I think it would have gone to him regardless. But I think now I kind of have Samson, but it's very close. Hottie beats him in the arms, but not in the outline, and the outline matters a little bit more to me in these front shots. So I think, in terms of detail and muscle maturity and things like that, Hottie has an edge, but I think Samson does enough when bringing a better outline to push him over the finish line. So that's actually where we're going to disagree, but let's move on.
The next pose is the front lat spread. Now, I think the front lat spread is Hottie's weakest pose, and I think
that's I mean, out of all the ones to pick, Hottie really doesn't have actually a whole lot of weak poses. The rear double is kind of meh. It's gotten a lot better though, and we'll get to that when we turn these guys around. But I mean, the side tricep, that would probably be his weakest pose. I don't think his tricep's stellar. He has the good pecs in the midsection, but I mean, maybe by default, the front lat spread is on the weaker end, but I don't think it's his weakest pose at all. I don't think it's even in the top two of his weakest poses. So
it's a pretty strong pose for Samson. Samson, you see the fullness in his arms and his shoulders, and especially his chest. He has a nice taper into a nice small waist. In this pose, you see that Hottie's waist is definitely wider. His chest is definitely flatter than Samson's here. And his taper, while he still has a good taper, it's not as dramatic with everything around it flowing into his waist as his waist looks a little bit wider. The lower body, again, both these guys have great legs from the front. On Saturday as well, Samson's legs definitely had more separation to him and more cuts. So when you take that into account with the upper body as well, I gave this pose to Samson, so it's 1-1 right now.
Yeah, I would actually double down and give this one also to Samson. I think Hottie's lats look good. They're very wide, perhaps even wider than Samson, because Hottie's he's a shorter guy, but he's incredibly wide. But Samson, his lats taper a lot lower, and it gives him the much better taper. And in Ohio, he kind of had a stomach issue. Here at the Arnold UK, it's a lot more sunken in, which helps his X-frame, and he has those big legs to round that out in the bottom. Better X-frame, better lats, and like Tyler said, fuller chest, fuller arms. Hottie, I'm surprised he didn't touch on this. Hottie has a little going on in his what would be his left delt, and it was pretty noticeable in the front lat spread. It'll be noticeable in the other posts. It's not just the left delt, but it's both of them. Samson had a little bit of the same issue going on, if you know what I'm hinting at, but I think Hottie's was definitely more noticeable. But overall, I kind of agree with everything that Tyler said there. We are in agreement on this one. Better taper, better X-frame, and probably the overall better lats when you account for how low they taper in and insert on Samson's physique.
The next pose is the side chest. You see again here that Samson has a lot of roundness and fullness to his muscle, especially in his upper body. So when you're going shoulder to shoulder here, you look at the fullness and the thickness of the chest. And again, the overall flow and balance between his upper and his lower body. His side legs are very, very big. And now we saw the lines and the detail really starting to come out on Saturday night.
Yeah,
You go over to Hadi. I still think this is a strong pose for Hadi, but
he's
you
improved
see
it.
that Samson has definitely more fullness to the chest. You see his side leg is definitely bigger as well. And now when he's in this kind of condition that he was in on Saturday night, you can see the lines and the details in his legs that match up great against Hadi's, and Hadi's legs are smaller than his from the side. So overall, again, with the balance and the fullness, I give Samson this pose.
Okay. I would kind of agree with most of that there. I think Hadi does do a very good job. The delt is an issue. But better chest detail, not the overall thicker pecs. And this is a pose where you really want to look thick in. I would agree with most of that. I think Samson brought enough detail in the side leg. Not so much in the chest, but he had the overwhelming mass advantage. Well, maybe not overwhelming. He had the, let's say, solid mass advantage over Hadi. And he's just so thick, so round. And that helps him in a pose like the side chest. I would agree with Tyler and give that one to Samson, although very narrowly. I think it's a lot closer than even I expected after seeing that footage.
To make it 2-1 for Samson. Next up is the back double bicep. And I think Hadi has improved his back double even from the Olympia a great deal. It's really impressive, actually, to be training for this long and to make the kind of improvement that I think he's made to his back in a very, very short period of time. So
Yeah.
in this pose, I definitely give it to Hadi. He added more depth and detail to his back.
Yeah, I give it to Hadi as well. He's probably going to say all the same things I do. In the lower body, Samson, it's just a matter of conditioning. If he was a bit more shredded, like I think he wins the pose, to be honest, because he looks to have the more detail, but it's just blurry. Hadi doesn't. He has a thick look to his back. He has a lot of density and a lot of width, but not true detail poking out. If that makes any sense. And also, I think you guys can see here. I think I turned my cursor on so you can see it. The delts here, well, the weird kind of lumps under the delts. It's something I noticed straight away. And I think from the judge's point of view, where they're kind of sitting down and can view up, I think the shadows being cast would probably make that pretty apparent there. I think Hadi still wins the pose simply because his back does have that density to it. And, I think he has brought up the detail a tiny bit. If this was like Arnold, Ohio, though, and I've said that a lot, and I'll probably say it more. If this is the Arnold, Ohio, though, I don't think it would be close at all. I think Samson, for being able to stand next to anyone that has won the Mr. Olympia with this kind of back, just kind of proves that it's maybe not as bad as people make it out to be. It's still a weaker back compared to where he is and compared to the rest of his physique. But, I don't think Hadi's necessarily running away with this per se. So I would still give this one to Hadi. But he has some issues, but Samson has some too. But Samson's already losing, so I'm looking at Hadi's issues with a little bit more scrutiny.
I feel like his back even looks wider right now. The detail in the back of his arms in this pose, which we see, I think has gone a little bit better than it was at the Olympia. And then also his legs look great from the back. And I think he added a little bit more width to his legs from the back as well since the Olympia. I think
but Samson's were already incredible.
Improved pose.
Minus the soggy glutes.
Then we get to Samson. I think Samson keeps improving his back poses.
For sure.
For the back double, you saw a little bit more depth and detail back there. He still needs to add more width for me. You saw, though, on Saturday,
just more density
really
for me.
The width and the detail of his lower body started to really show in this pose. So
yeah,
the difference in conditioning made a big difference for him. But overall, especially when you're looking at the overall back, I give this pose to Hadi.
Okay, I'm just going to let him talk through the next back pose. So he gave the rear double to Hadi, but this rear lat spread, it's not close. So I'll just let it talk through. I mean, Samson has a big upper body, a big lower body, excuse me. Hadi has the more shredded lower body, so it's close there. I would give the edge to Hadi for sure, for me personally, but in the back. To be a shorter guy and be just as wide as someone that's several inches taller and wider than you is crazy. And then Hadi also has the thickness. Like, look at those spinal erectors and the traps. It's not even close. Like, on every metric, Hadi wins. This is a resounding victory. Like, sometimes I include margins in my comparisons. I would give Hadi an extra half point or maybe an extra point in general just because I think this is a dominating win.
to make it 2-2. The next pose is the back lat spread.
It's not
Again,
close.
Hadi
I'd be
improved this
surprised
pose. You could
if
see
he
the
says that.
thickness back there and the depth to his back when he gets all the way out there. His width definitely improved as well. Take that, into consideration with his lower body, and it's an extremely strong pose for him right now. Samson, you can see this pose is definitely improving. I think
Yeah.
even flexibility-wise, you can tell.
I will say Samson hits it a little differently than he was in like 2023. Like at the Arnold Ohio, he used to like really sit back and spread it out. Now he kind of like stands straight up and doesn't spread it out as much. I would go back to his older presentation. I think he would have an easier time. That's just my 2 cents personally.
Right now on Saturday that he's pulling out his lats more. He's getting them, he's getting the full extension and the full width to his lats, but he still needs more width in this pose.
Yeah.
And just to keep doing what he's been doing to keep improving it to turn this pose into a strength for him. But as of right now,
he just needs a little more. And against most of the guys, this would be fine. Maybe he could be a touch drier, but it's just his problem is he's standing next to Hadi in this pose. That's his main issue.
Hadi wins this pose, so it's now 3-2. Next up is the side tricep pose. Now the side tricep, Hadi again from the side, I think, when he's standing next to a guy like Samson, you can see there's definitely a size difference.
Yeah.
But you see the crisp detail in this pose with Hadi when it comes to, even though his chest doesn't have the roundness that Samson has, it has the striations and the detail. Obviously, the midsection is flat, and his abs and serratus are insanely detailed.
Yeah.
His arms and shoulders and his tricep looks great in this pose. His side leg is still good, even though it's smaller than Samson's. Now, in this pose, Samson needs to work on hitting this pose a little bit better.
Definitely.
His
So I will say, I know a lot of people do like Hadi's version. I don't think the angle does Samson any favors here because it's kind of twisting away, but that's what Tyler's about to talk about. He needs to probably lock that stomach in more and actually lock out the tricep more because his tricep always looks blurry. And at the Arnold Ohio, it didn't, but I think it's just because he was more locked into the pose. And he has trouble with that. He just almost never locks in the tricep. But I've talked to some people, they have Hadi winning just basically on the midsection and other details alone, even though his tricep may not be as good. I'm kind of more inclined to go with Samson for the same reasons I did in the side chest. It's just this pose is about overall thickness. But let's let Tyler continue.
stomach is distended when he hits this pose a little bit. His abs aren't flat, as you see with Hadi here in this pose.
Yep.
I think this is what hurts Samson in this pose. So, again, as he keeps getting his conditioning better and better, and if he can make adjustments to this pose, this is a pose that I think he can end up flipping in the future. But right now, and what it looked like this weekend, Hadi takes this pose for me. So
I would kind of say so. If this was the Arnold Ohio for Samson, I think it would be different solely because of tricep definition. Like I look at Samson's tricep and I look for it to be that deciding factor like it is at the Arnold, like it was at the Arnold Ohio, but I don't see that. And, I think I can go either way personally, even with Samson being a little blurrier just because I like the roundness. But I think Hadi does enough. If this was, I think I did have Hadi losing this one in Ohio because of Samson's better tricep. But in this particular one, I am more inclined to go with Tyler. So I think when all things are fairly equal and Samson just kind of looks a little unrefined, I probably would go with Hadi on this particular one. I don't think that was the case in Ohio, but this is in Ohio.
So it's now 4-2 Hadi. Next up is the ab and thigh pose. This pose is just, a crazy, crazy pose for Hadi.
I'd be interested to see what Tyler says about Samson's stomach. Hopefully he addresses that here, but I don't really see the need to address this pose either. This is a Hadi win through and through. It's not even close.
Basically probably no one beats him in the ab and thigh pose in the whole entire professional league right now. So the best that guys can do is just keep improving their ab and thighs pose next to him to make sure it's not a blowout pose for him.
It's a blowout here, though.
And I think when you see even the difference from Friday to Saturday with Samson, this pose is getting stronger and stronger for him. The same thing
I don't know what Tyler's seeing here or what he saw because he was there and I wasn't. So disclaimer there. But that has gotten worse. The stomach control was a little bit off. Better in the UK than it was in Ohio. Not taking away from that. But Samson's abs and thighs, the head-on version, is worse because of it, and it's gotten worse. Like, compare that to 2023, and it wasn't even stellar back then. It was still a bad pose. That's why he twists and goes to the side. But even that one has gotten worse because the stomach protrudes more. I definitely disagree with Tyler here. I do not think Samson's abs and thighs have the pose itself, let alone the body part, has gotten better.
He can pull a vacuum. He can crunch down on the abs.
His vacuum was not that good. He at all. Maybe we'll see it again. I'm not going to go back, but I don't think it's not on the level of Derek, Hottie. Definitely not on the level of even like a classic competitor like Wesley Vissers. Even with his boxy ribcage, has a better one. Hottie has a better vacuum. Hunter can pull an okay vacuum. He doesn't do it on stage, but he can pull it in his offseason and he practices it. I don't like Samson's vacuum at all.
See the detail in his quads when he's flexing his leg, the separation when he's not flexing them, the taper down into a nice small waist. His abs can be a little bit deeper here.
A lot bit deeper.
The separation in his legs could even get better.
For sure.
But this pose has improved a lot for him. I think it's going to be a strength standing next to a lot of other guys.
I don't see it.
When we're comparing Samson and Hottie alone here, Hottie definitely takes this pose to make it 5-2.
I don't know if he's going to stop it, but I stopped it myself. Look at, I guess it's not a very good angle. If I showed you like an eye level version of like their eye level, and we saw Samson's stomach, you guys would see, and I'm sure a lot of you saw that. You can even see kind of like an ab split going on a little bit here, but yeah, he had a little bit of stomach protrusion there. So
then the last pose is the most muscular pose. Now again, this is a very strong pose for Hottie.
See what Tyler has to say about this one.
A very smart way, like I've said before. He doesn't even clasp his hands. He keeps his knuckles together, so he keeps the width here when he hits this pose. You see all the striations in his chest, the detail throughout his abdomen. His arms look good when he's flexing them like this.
Triceps
keeping
could
them
be,
out wide.
Sweep a bit
his
more.
lower body, again, is great. Now, Samson has the fullness and the roundness here.
Yeah.
All he's missing is the deeper separation and striations in this.
I'm exactly with Tyler, not to cut him off, but I think we're going to agree with everything. Hottie is just too far ahead in terms of density and everything. Samson may be a bit rounder and everything. Heck, maybe even he is more muscular. I don't know, like, proportionally what these guys weigh and what their heights are exactly, so I can't tell you who is more muscular. But Hottie is bringing the quality. Samson just looks like a ball of unrefined mass, and it's impressive in its own right. But if he just got 5% sharper, he would win easily. I think this would be one of the better most musculars. I think it could at least stand next to someone like Nick Walker. It would, imagine Crizzo. He has the detail and the fullness. That's in the similar vein of what Samson would look like if he just had 5 to 10% better conditioning. But right now, I have Hottie winning this pretty easily. The abs, the density through the chest, the density everywhere, the details, the striations. I have Hottie winning this one easily.
This pose. So this is another one of these closer poses. But as it stands right now, for me this weekend, I would give it to Hottie.
Yeah.
However, you see these guys were feeding off the energy and really moving around and hitting a lot of most muscular poses. Once they go out into other poses, for example, the crab most muscular, Samson definitely has an advantage here.
Better arms.
Hottie. So, when it comes to
better arms
these
in that
really
pose.
Close shows, the guys need to make sure they're thinking of, while they're still getting excited and feeling the energy of the crowd, to make sure you're only hitting your best poses, because if you start hitting a pose another guy's better, and we're taking everything into account while we're watching. So
good. That's how it should be.
Pose by pose, it was 6-2 Hottie, even though
Okay, yeah. I marked it down. 6-2 for Hottie. I had it 5-3 for Hottie. So slight disagreement there. The only thing we disagreed on was the some of the margins, but the only pose we disagreed on was the front double. So overall, even though he won only 5 poses, and I mean a tie is 4-4, so it was close to a tie. But even then, I think Hottie, like, I don't see it as close. I really don't. I mean, conditioning, that goes to Hottie. Shape, now that he's brought his waist down, it's still probably going to Samson, but I mean, Hottie's he's not shaped like a brick. He's not blocky anymore. So he's not as blocky anymore, I guess I should say. And then in terms of muscularity, he's right there, especially when you also factor in completeness in terms of Samson. Samson may be bigger, we get it, he's 300 or 290 or whatever on stage, but Hottie with his better completeness, better density, he's right there in terms of muscularity. So I don't see it as close. I'd be interested to see if Tyler thinks it was close, because Tyler himself had 6-2 in favor of Hottie. But it's a panel of judges, so let's see what he wraps us up
With
with.
the score 6-2, this competition between these two was much, much closer than Columbus was. And I think you can see that again in the front double.
Yeah, I forgot. He didn't even feel the need to go pose by pose in the Arnold Ohio breakdown. So that's interesting. He felt the need to do it here. Actually gave Samson a couple poses. Didn't even break it down in Arnold Ohio. So, I mean, closer. I can agree with that. It was closer, but I mean the gap is still much better. And then at Saturday night, I don't care how much Samson improved. Once Hottie makes those improvements and actually has proper time to peak himself, it's all over. Him and Hani Rambod, they're a dynamic duo. Every one of Hani's athletes is Mr. Saturday Night, and that's the case with Hottie. And it definitely does say something that Samson couldn't beat a Hottie that showed up to the show 24 hours out. So
I would have no argument which person you gave that pose to, whether it was Samson or Hottie. So again, right there, that changes it.
yeah,
And let's just talk about going forward what each guy needs to do and improve on.
okay,
And for Hottie, I think you can tell right now, like the front lat spread, he needs to keep working on getting that pose better. And then also the side poses, he can get that side leg to come up just a little bit more.
I
But
think
also the upper body.
I think the side leg is fine. The last spread claims are kind of weird too. I mean, I don't really think Hottie needs. If he actually brought a better peak week, had an actual peak week, his legs would have been a bit fuller. He probably wouldn't have been so waterlogged, I guess I should say, and things like that. I think the front lat spread, not only is it not going to get any better, but it's pretty good as is.
If you can get a little bit more of that fullness and roundness to the chest while keeping the striations, that would definitely help him and help him keep width across the top.
Just needs a peak
shoulder
week.
to shoulder while he hits these poses. Now for Samson, if Samson wants to, keep improving, and let's just use Hottie as an example,
It's
they
just
compete
condition.
against each other.
It's just
He needs
condition.
to turn that front double bicep pose around, which again on Saturday already, that pose could have went either way. The next one that he really needs to focus on, I would say, is the most muscular. It's the second closest
Again,
pose
just
between
condition.
those two that Hottie won. He has the size and the roundness and the fullness, like I said, but bringing out more of that detail
That's it.
while keeping the abs under control the whole entire time while posing
Yep.
is only going to serve him really well, because he is just a bigger guy in general. And when you can keep that fullness and roundness to your muscle, but also bring in the detail, that's going to make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
And the legs are going to be affected with that detail as well. And that's only going to make the legs look bigger. And when it comes to, just that quad development, he has some of the best, in the entire world. So
Sure.
that pose. And then the last one I would say for him is the side tricep pose.
Yep. Just
He
lock
needs
it out
to keep
more.
working on hitting the pose
And
better,
again, more
making sure
detail.
the abs are flat, but then also just bringing out more detail in that pose as well.
Every one of every one of Samson's poses Tyler mentioned was pertinent on having more detail. If he had more detail, I think Tyler would have given him those three poses that he had mentioned: the front double, the side try, and what was the other one? Was the other one the back? Either way, that was one of the poses I think he needs to bring up. And like Tyler said, it's a matter of conditioning. He just needs a little bit more. He has all the size he ever needs. He doesn't need to do another big offseason. Sure, he needs to improve some things. He doesn't need another big offseason. He just needs to tighten up a little bit here, a little bit there, and have slightly better presentation, mainly in the stomach area. So, not that much, but Samson hasn't brought it yet, so it may be harder than we think it is. I don't really know, but in the grand scheme of things, Samson doesn't have to do much.
He's a bigger guy, so once he figures out how to hit that pose better and can control it the whole entire time on stage with better detail, it's going to be hard to stand next to for some of these guys that are just smaller than him.
Sure,
There's
he has
a
all the
path
tools.
for him. There's a path to overcoming Hottie, right? For Hottie, there's a path to keep getting more dominant. And these guys were second and third last year, so you got Mr. Olympia out there that I'm sure Derek has been watching these past 2 weekends like, man, I better be training hard and making improvements as well, because the Olympia, I think, is just going to be unbelievable this year. I'm so excited
Yeah.
for it after these past 2 weeks. And, we got a couple other top guys that we're going to see throughout the year. So I can't wait to see what improvements they've made as well. And I just think this Olympia is going to be unbelievable this year. So if you want to experience a show in person, get to that show and give these guys your energy, because it was just so awesome to see them feeding off the crowd this weekend, and that kind of support I know goes a long way with them. So that wraps it up for the top two. We'll
Okay.
review third and fourth place, which was Akeem and John.
This was an interesting call out. I
Now,
was glad to see this.
As you guys saw by the scores, John won on Friday night,
Yeah,
and
prejudging.
Akeem won on Saturday night.
Yeah.
The difference is it wasn't a clean sweep for John on Friday, and it was a clean sweep for Akeem on Saturday. That ended up being the
That's
point
typically how
differential.
it goes.
So
That's typically how
I
it
think
goes.
on Friday, conditioning wise and fullness and pop, John definitely had the advantage.
Akeem should just go into the show a day early. He should treat Thursday like Friday, so that way when Friday does roll around, he's like Saturday, and then maybe actual Saturday can be a bit better, because he always seems to peak much better for Saturday. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's stress, whatnot. I don't really know what it is. So because he looked phenomenal at the last two shows in general, but so much better at both Saturday night shows. So it's a bit interesting, but hopefully now with his better coach, I don't know who his coach was before that. With his new coach, I guess I should say, that's not very fair to say better. With his new coach Chris Aceto, this is their second show together. I'm predicting Akeem to stick around for a while, but
advantage on Friday. And then on Saturday, Akeem came out and just like he did 2 weeks ago, he looked so much better on Saturday night than he did on Friday. I'll take you through pose by pose here in what I saw. So the first pose up is the front double bicep.
Akeem all day.
I think this pose
I don't even need to stop it.
Very close between the two. You see they both have nice taper.
This angle absolutely makes Akeem look terrible, but we know what Akeem looks like. As long as he's on, he's winning this pose. Those arms alone can win him this pose. And he honestly is fairly shapely for a guy of his size. So this is Akeem. I mean, John doesn't have the arms. Very good arms for having torn one of them. I think it was that left one, but I'm not entirely sure. It kind of looks like it because it's a bit smaller. But, I mean, the shape and the structure on Akeem, let alone the arms, it's just too much for John.
They have a nice flow overall to their body from their arms into their into their lats, down to a nice small waist, and then their legs are pretty balanced overall. Now I think Akeem has a little bit more size here. And
a little?
He has just a little bit more to his legs as well.
Oh, okay, just in
John
the legs,
needs to
sure.
add more leg width, and add a little bit more to the quads from the front. So on Saturday night, I gave the front double to Akeem just by a hair.
I don't think it was that close.
The front lat spread. In the front lat spread here, again, you kind of see the size difference between John and
Akeem's
Akeem.
lats are
John's just
huge.
a little bit smaller. Again, great taper. You're seeing fullness throughout the arms into the chest.
Terrible angle.
Akeem has a little bit of a fuller chest. And then their waists are both pretty small with the X-frame and good legs. But again, I think Akeem has a little bit of an edge on the legs to John from the front when he's in this kind of condition.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave Akeem the front lat spread as well.
Better
to make
lats,
it 2 to
too.
0.
I would
Next
agree.
up is the side chest.
We can skip that one, too. That's
Akeem's
Akeem.
side poses are really, really strong. You see
Unbeatable
just how
for most
big
guys.
and how round and full his muscle is in these poses. He can stand up to a lot of guys and beat a lot of guys in the pro league in these side poses.
Even with a stacked, compact guy like John, this is not close. Like Akeem's side leg is so detailed. The arm and delt are crazy, and then the pecs. Let alone the pecs.
So the side chest is just extremely strong for him. You see the fullness and the development of his arms, his shoulders, his chest. Stomach is flat. Going to his lower body, his side leg is crazy. He has those crazy lines too in his side leg, which makes it even more impressive. And this was a clear pose for Akeem for me, so that would make it 3-0.
Yeah.
Next up is the back double bicep.
This is one where
Back double
Akeem is going to
bicep,
lose
I think
automatically.
John keeps improving his back double. He's added a good bit more depth and detail that you can see back there. Now I still think he needs to add some more, with a little bit more width as well. But
Yeah, so overall, John bringing a good back, but unfortunately for Akeem, he was dead on arrival. It's just the high lats, the shallow mid to lower back. It's not a good pose for him. By far the weakest one, and it's like if his side poses are up here and like the baseline is right here, it's like so far down. Like it is quite a valley. I think the upper back looks okay, but the upper back just ends so abruptly. Like, yeah, sure, the upper back is okay, but that's like he has a shorter upper back than even most other guys with high lats. So John wins this by default.
his hamstrings and his leg width from the back has definitely improved, and it can still improve a little bit more, but it's improved a lot. And overall, this has become a pretty strong pose for him.
Yeah, John is pretty
Akeem,
underrated in this
this
one
is definitely his weakest pose.
by far.
So this is where it hurts him against a lot of guys. He just has to keep improving that overall back to match,
He
his
can't
legs
do
from the
much.
back and also
He
his arms
can't
from the
do
back.
much.
The back has to match with the rest of his physique. So this was a clear pose for John for me to make it 3-1. Next up is the back lat spread. Again, a pretty strong pose for John here. He can keep working on improving the width and add a little bit more depth to the back. But when you look from the balance from his back down to
You know, as it's weird because Akeem's like rear double is like awful, but his rear lat spread, I mean, if we ask for width, in my opinion, width and taper, John has the taper, Akeem has the width. Like his lats are high, but they're wide. And then the lower body, I think these guys are pretty on par. I'd actually give Akeem the slight edge, maybe, at least based on this video. I don't think that's super accurate because Akeem, he's going to vary a lot. He's just one of those guys that vary a lot to picture to picture to video to video. But here, I kind of like Akeem more. I mean, he has the width and his thickness is actually pretty good. So I like the argument for John, though. I could see both.
his legs, he's definitely the more balanced bodybuilder here. Akeem has improved his back lat spread. He knows these back poses are the two poses he really needs to focus on.
This one's all right.
But it's definitely improved from years prior. You can see more width. He's getting his lats out more. You can see a little bit more depth back there too. And obviously, his legs from the back are very strong. But this was still a pose that went to John to make it 3-2. The next pose is the side tricep.
Skip it again.
Like I said before,
That's
his side
Akeem.
poses, they're very, very strong. This was a clear pose for Akeem here. He can match up against a ton of guys in this pose.
For sure.
John's side tricep is still actually a very strong pose.
He just needs a little more
He's really
tricep,
just getting
in my opinion.
outsized and outmassed in this pose by Akeem. And when
Yeah.
the conditioning is
Yeah.
like this, Friday, John had the edge, but on Saturday, Akeem had the edge. But when the conditioning is close and you have that size advantage, you're going to take the pose.
Yep.
So Akeem takes it to make it 4-2. Next up is the abdominals and thigh pose. John's ab and thigh pose is really good. Once he really
I think it's improved.
blows out on his abs and gets his waist in, his waist becomes super small. So you see that great taper and the illusion of the taper all the way, with his arms over his head coming into the nice small waist. Again, his quads from the front look solid. They could use a little bit more size, but still overall with the flow of the pose, it is a great pose for him, very strong. Akeem has a nice taper in this pose. I think the abs could have a little bit more detail in them.
They've been better in the past for sure.
And overall, his taper just isn't as dramatic.
Okay, he's going to let the video play out. So I want to talk about it while it's on the screen. I think John wins the abs. Akeem wins the thighs. And I think they win them about by the same margin. John's abs aren't stellar, I guess you would say. They're very solid, right? There's a solid set of abs. But Akeem's legs, I would say they're even better than John's abs, if that makes sense, if you guys understand what I'm saying. And then Akeem's abs, he falls off a lot. The waist is just not what it used to be. It just happens when he's getting older. It just happens. And his abs aren't as tight, and he's never had the best abs. Usually in this post he gets a pass because usually they're a lot better, but I think they've been better. They've just been better. And then I think for the weak link, Akeem's abs are worse than John's quads, if that makes sense. So in a sum of parts game, I think John wins this fairly easily. I wish Akeem did bring in slightly tighter abs, because I think he would, with those quads, I think he just needs a little bit better abs because I think those can carry him. But as it is right now, this is one of the few poses that John does win.
In this pose as John's is, so I give this pose to John.
Yeah.
That makes it 4-3. And then the final pose is the most muscular pose. Again, this is a pose that Akeem shows off the size
I
and
wish
the
he hit the
fullness and the
crab.
roundness of his muscle. And when he's in this type of condition,
It's
he's
game
able
over.
to
It's game over.
outmuscle and outmass John in this pose. So that would give it 5-3 to Akeem.
Yeah, John, basically, very compact guy, so he's going to look pretty muscular because he has a smaller frame to fill out, but he's filling that out. Akeem, he was just blessed with a larger frame, and he's one of the few guys that have filled it out. So, and like Tyler said, with the proper condition, that's really the only missing link because he has the frame, he has the size, and now he has the condition. I just wish he hit the crab. Akeem's crab is just crazy. But yeah, I'd have Akeem winning this one. I had him winning the rear lat spread too, just from that angle. I mean, let's make it interesting. Let's give him that pose. 6-2 based on the Saturday night footage for me, and then 5-3 for Akeem for Tyler on Saturday night.
I think every judge saw it pretty similar to this, which is why you saw the straight thirds and straight fourths on Saturday night for Akeem. And I thought it was a really exciting battle for third at this show between these two.
Sure.
And these two are guys that have been around for a really long time and have kind of made a statement this year that
they're still around.
They're back, and they're coming back to get back into that top 10 at the Olympia. So I'm excited to see what both of them can bring to the stage this year and hopefully get their qualification for this year as well for the Olympia.
I think they can.
That wraps it up for Men's Open.
Well, that is the recap. So overall, I didn't really disagree with too much here. Definitely not anything major, Some of the nitpicks with Hottie and Samson, maybe more so with Hottie. I think, some of the nitpicks there on like what he should improve and what he should do and what he's currently doing. We can agree to disagree. Some of the poses, the only ones we disagreed on were the ones that were close. So, and at that point, 50-50. 50% of people are going to agree with me, 50% of people are going to agree with Tyler. So it is what it is, It's just when it's close, some people vary in opinions. But on the major things, I don't remember a single thing that we majorly disagreed on. I definitely like seeing that top two call out. Not the top two call out, the two-man call out, I guess I should say, of John and Akeem. We don't usually get two-man call outs like that. But it was close enough to have a battle for, I guess that'd be third, so a battle for bronze. I really like that kind of dynamic. And then, of course, we had that top two from the Arnold, Ohio. Hottie ended up winning this one. Again, that makes him a two-time Arnold champion in 1 year, although the Arnold Classic isn't the same as Ohio. But, two Arnold Classics in a year. And then Samson improved, but like I said earlier, improved, but not enough. Like I said, the gap between them was huge, and it got slightly smaller. And then between Akeem and John, that's kind of what happened. Akeem just stepped it up so much on Saturday that it just wasn't enough. As long as Akeem, like Tyler said, is on, his size and shape carry him over a lot of guys. And John's lead was already kind of shaky to begin with. But anyway, I don't think I really disagree with a lot there. I definitely wanted to see more recaps from Tyler, and I definitely plan on recapping every single one that he does as long as I watch the show. I don't want to recap something I don't, have any knowledge about. So if you guys like these recaps, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more. And let me know if you guys want to see these in a live format. I think some of them I can do in a live format, but it would just be a lot. Like if he puts these out within the same week of a live stream that we're already going to cover, because I do plan on live streaming every single event on this channel, at least doing a watch party commentary sort of thing. That's a lot of live streaming in 1 week. But if you guys want me to do it, I'll do it. I'll at least try to do some of them live, so maybe we can get a little taste of both to see what you guys want. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. If you guys like these videos, but again, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more, and let me know if you guys want to see this live. Stay tuned because I will be reviewing his Arnold Classic UK Classic Physique recap next. Anyway, that's going to do it for me in this one. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.